Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Forbes senior contributor Adam Minsky. Adam, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Brittany.
The Supreme Court just made a long-awaited decision regarding President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan, and let's just say it is not a good day for borrowers. What can you tell us?
Very bad day for borrowers. The court pretty unequivocally in a 6-3 decision struck down Biden's one-time student loan forgiveness plan that would have provided up to $20,000 in student debt relief to most federal student loan borrowers. That program is now effectively dead following this decision.
And what led them to this decision? Can you give us a little more behind the scenes there?
So there were two major legal issues before the court. There were actually two student loan forgiveness challenges. One was brought by two private individuals who had federal student loans, and the other was brought by a coalition of Republican-led states. The two major issues before the court were: do the challengers have standing to sue, meaning have they been able to demonstrate that they would be directly injured as a result of the student loan forgiveness plan? And the second issue is whether the program itself was authorized under the HEROES Act of 2003, which is a federal statute that allows the Education Department to waive or modify federal student loan programs as a result of a national emergency. The court unanimously found that the two borrowers don't have standing to sue, so that suit was ultimately rejected. But in a 6-3 decision along ideological lines, the court did find that the states have standing to sue, and then they went further and determined that the HEROES Act does not authorize this type of plan, and that the plan goes above and beyond what the court believes Congress would have intended when they enacted the HEROES Act about 20 years ago.
I know that millions of borrowers were waiting really with bated breath for this decision for months now. How does this impact them immediately?
Well, so borrowers who are hoping to receive student loan forgiveness as a result of this plan will not be receiving that student loan forgiveness. This program is effectively struck down and it is over. That being said, the Biden administration says that they will be moving forward with other initiatives, including a new income-driven repayment plan that should provide more generous benefits to borrowers in the form of lower payments. We're expecting to hear more about that in the coming weeks. There's a push by advocacy groups for the Biden administration to try to reissue the student loan forgiveness plan under a different legal authority. It's unclear if the administration is going to do that or not, and if they do, it's unclear that the Supreme Court would be any more amenable to that program under a different statute as compared to the HEROES Act.
Adam, I know you're using words like dead and it's over, but as we know, this has been a staple of President Biden's presidency thus far. It also was a huge campaign promise. So I'm curious, is there anything that the Biden administration has in the works that will salvage this program for them?
Well, they could try to issue the program under a different, statute and see how it goes. I would imagine that that's going to be challenged in federal courts as well. And at the end of the day, if the Supreme Court's position is that Congress has to specifically authorize this type of sweeping programs for it to be upheld, this just simply may get struck down again. The administration is, however, trying to tweak income-driven repayment plans under existing statutes. There's some argument that they have a lot more legal flexibility there, and so in theory they could try to tweak those plans even more, perhaps accelerating student loan forgiveness for many folks, making payments significantly more affordable. So they might have some flexibility to do something, but if this court insists that this type of plan cannot go forward without legislation from Congress that explicitly authorizes it, the administration's hands are going to be tied to some extent.
I do now want to talk about the problem of college affordability, and the White House said this when announcing the plan back in August of 2022. President Biden believes that a post-high school education should be a ticket to a middle-class life. But for too many, the cost of borrowing for college is a lifelong burden that deprives them of that opportunity. Is there anything in the works now to solve the root problem, which is college affordability in general?
There is a bill that was filed in Congress, I believe sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders, that would provide free college tuition to most public institutions for borrowers or for students who come from families earning below certain income thresholds. Of course, we have a divided Congress with Republicans holding the House with a narrow majority and Democrats holding the Senate with a narrow majority. It's unclear at this juncture whether the parties would be able to come together and pass something like that. But there is a bill that's in Congress right now that would provide relief to students so that they wouldn't have to take on student debt in the first place.
Adam, you're a student loan expert. You and I have been talking about this in depth for months now. So I'm curious about the broader implications here. What type of precedent is this setting, both for student loans as well as college affordability?
Well, the court's language in the decision seems to basically take the HEROES Act off the table in terms of enacting some sort of sweeping relief. The court's interpretation of the statutory language suggests that they would be very skeptical of anything beyond a minor modification to existing programs. The dissent, the three liberal justices on the court, strongly disagree with that position and argue that the plain language of the HEROES Act gives the Education Department sweeping authority. But my reading of the decision suggests that the Supreme Court in its current form is not going to be amenable to at least this legal basis for further relief. It is going to restrict the Biden administration's ability to enact emergency measures. If there's another, pandemic or a war or natural disaster, it does seem to limit the administration's ability to address the resulting economic harm that would be incurred by borrowers. Again, there are other tools. The Higher Education Act, for instance, does provide some other avenues that the administration can explore. We can also, look to Congress to try to pass bills. There's an upcoming election in 2024 that could change the makeup of Congress. Some progressives are also pushing for changes to the Supreme Court itself. This isn't the only decision that is making waves. There was another decision today impacting LGBTQ people. There was a decision striking down affirmative action earlier this week. And of course, there's the abortion issue as well following Dobbs last year. So, the court is, and the way the court has been ruling is definitely on the minds of a lot of people. And there is a push for potential court reform as a means of addressing some of these problems as well.
It's really interesting that this decision was dropped on June 30th. As we know, June 30th is when the payment pause is lifted. So if you're a borrower, today might seem like a 1-2 punch. Adam, I would love to get your take. What's some advice that you would give to borrowers right now in the wake of this decision?
Well, the payment pause is set to end 30 days after today, which gets us basically to the end of August. Interest will start accruing by the first day of September. The first billing statements will probably be generated during September as well, and the first billing due dates will likely be in October. So the repayment, resumption is coming. It's not imminent, but it is coming very soon. What borrowers should be doing is taking a look at their student loan accounts, log into studentaid.gov, get a sense as to where your loans are. If your servicer has changed, make sure to update your contact information, establish an online account with your new servicer. Try to figure out what your payments are going to be when payments are set to resume. And if you can't afford those payments, start exploring your options. Look into income-driven repayment. If you're already in one of those income-driven plans, look into possibly changing your plan or requesting a recalculation of your payment if your income has been reduced. There are options out there. The administration is also talking about adding some new flexibilities in the coming months, including a grace period where you won't be dinged if you miss a payment, and giving people the opportunity to get out of default. So there are options out there, but now is the time to start looking at those options.
Adam Minsky, per usual, I appreciate your insights. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.